I recently invented an opening and decided to call it the cow opening. Now, to truly test the strength of the opening, I decided to put it against Stockfish. And I thought, you know what? If my opening is able to beat Stockfish 15.1, then my opening is legit. And this opening is actually playable at pretty much any level. So obviously, I am 2100 rated, so I can't beat Stockfish with any opening that I may play. I mean, even if you give me a queen, I'm not sure I would be able to beat Stockfish. We're talking right now about one of the strongest chess engines in the world. So I thought, if I'm playing against Stockfish, I'm gonna need Stockfish on my side as well. So we are basically going to be seeing in this video Stockfish 15.1 versus Stockfish 15.1 Cow Edition. And the game was an absolute mess. Now, to make this a little bit more of a practical game, I decided to put the depth at 14, which is the lowest depth that we have. Now, let me know in the comments down below if you want to see a video where I put Stockfish to its absolute highest depth. But I thought that, you know what? We can have some fun. We are all worse than Stockfish 14 anyways. So what we're seeing here is still going to be a game that is on a whole other level than, I mean, pretty much any single one of us. So everybody, the game started with e3 and knight of 6, d3, d5, and now, you know, these are the first few moves in the cow opening. If you haven't seen and you're like, Anna, what is this cow opening? I did a full-on video on the cow opening, but to keep things short, in the cow opening, what you try to do is that you go ahead and give your opponent a lot of space. So you simply just move the pawns one step and then you get the knights over here and over here. Now what happens is that you lose a lot of tempos in the opening. And I mean a lot. You lose a lot of tempos in the opening, but you end up putting your pieces in squares that are actually not that bad. And you gain a sort of psychological advantage over your opponent. Maybe. Because your opponent doesn't really know what to play against it. At least that's typically the case. So in this position, knight e2, e5, this is one of the most common ways of playing, and I have, after some thorough analysis, realized that a better move order of my cow opening is to start here with going knight d2, because if you go immediately knight g3, then h5 might come very, very quickly. So I've realized that a better way of playing this is going knight d2, and actually the engine thinks that this is the second best move. The engine doesn't really think this is so bad. So I went knight d2 here, but we're still going to the same place, to g3 and to b3. These are still the same squares we're gonna get our knights to. I typically like thinking about the knights being here and as this being a sort of like a cow face with, you know, the horns being the knights on the side. So now my opponent, or Stockfish, went c5, knight g3, and we saw h5 here. Now, it is crucial after h5, you know, I've been starting to dig up a little bit of theory in the cow opening. I've realized that it's crucial to not play knight b3 immediately in this position, only if your opponent goes h5, because actually there's going to be this idea of going h4, h3, and this is a very strong idea for black. So I came up that, or I mean Stockfish. You know what? I'm going to say we in this video, and we is literally just me and Stockfish, okay? I am working here with Stockfish. I'm not taking the credit of any of the moves that white does. This is all the work of Stockfish, okay? It's not my work, but I still wanted to see how this went because I thought this was very interesting. So h4 here is the move that you're supposed to go to prevent this pawn from pushing and kicking away this knight. Now, here my opponent went bishop g4, being very annoying and stopping me from getting my knight up to b3, which is the move I really want to do. So once again, I had to spend one more tempo preventing the threat of the bishop taking the queen. And then after this move, Stockfish went queen d7, and now finally knight b3. Now we have the finalized cow opening, everybody. This is it. This is the cow. Here we have it. As soon as you get your two pawns out and the knights over here, you have created a cow opening. And if you do this, I'm going to be so proud of you. Let me know in the comments if you've played the cow opening yet. I get so happy when I see people saying that they've won with this. So, knight b3, and now Stockfish went knight c6 developing. Now here, I ended up playing e4 because actually after Stockfish thought for a little bit, it thought that this was the best move in this position. And this is a very common move in the cow. what you try to do is that you're immediately giving up a lot of space, right? So black gets a lot of center. You see all these really annoying central pawns in the middle, and you don't really gain any space, but later on, when you've finally developed all your minor pieces, that's when you strike back in the center. And this is a perfect example of striking back in the center. You go e4 in this position, immediately challenging black's center. So here, D takes e4 was played, and now knight takes. And what was the idea? Well, the idea is basically that taking here with the pawn isn't really so good because this knight is not really going to be that great. So it's better to capture here with the knight and get the knights exchanged. But now here b6 was played defending this pawn, and knight takes f6. There was a couple exchanges here, and now black has these double pawns. Now I was kind of surprised that Stockfish did not capture this knight. I thought that in this position, I thought that this was going to be the move that was going to be played, something like this, and knight d4. But, you know, this is Stockfish playing. So I truly do not understand all of the moves that Stockfish does, but Stockfish is as good as, you know, like pretty much something gets. So knight takes f6. There were these double pawns, and then bishop d2. So the bishop developed. Now, in this position, rook g8 was played to threaten, to maybe take here and then take this pawn. So in this position, we really had to take away this threat from nasty Stockfish. So we took on g4, bishop takes g4, and rook takes g4 was played. And now queen e2. Now, what is the idea? Well, the idea is that if rook takes g2, there is queen takes a5. But we're also opening up for this king to castle. So this is a multi-purpose move. What a great move we came up with. I wish I was Stockfish. So rook c8. And now I was kind of wondering, you know, where is this king gonna go? Like, are you not gonna castle? Like, are you really gonna stay in the center? I knew at this point that this game was gonna get extremely interesting. Like, I could feel it. A game where the king does not castle, this is gonna get really insane, and it did. So f3 was played here, defending the pawn, but also threatening the rook. The rook had to move, and now long castle. So finally, we get our king into safety. Now, a5 was played here with the idea of going a4, bishop e3 to create a square for the knight to escape to after a4 is played. And now queen e6, threatening this a2 pawn. Now, in this position, a3 makes a lot of sense. Although if I was playing, I would have gone king b1. But a3 makes a lot of sense. But now bishop e7 was played first. Rook hg1, and now queen a2 was played. And in this position, I started trembling. You know, I really wanted to see us getting a good position with the cow. Obviously, I've invented an opening. I want to see Stockfish having, you know, a great time with it. So when the queen went to a2, I started trembling. I started shaking, and I was like, what is going on here? Like, I got really scared for our king. I thought, you know what? Our king is the one which is supposed to be good because we're the king that is castled. This king is not castled, but I started trembling here. So now g4 was played, and we decided to go towards the attack of this king. Typically, what you try to do is that you try to open up the position if your opponent has not castled. So here, I'm sort of opening up the queen side. I mean, if takes, I'm not sure. Yeah, we would take with the f pawn. I'm sure that we would start bringing up like some rooks over here. This would be pretty good, but the idea is going to be to go g5 and just basically start to explode the pawns in front of the king. So that's basically the idea here. So b5 was played, and now this became a race. You know, this is like a Formula 1 race. Which car is going to be faster, this car or this one? I'm saying Formula 1 because I know there was a Formula 1 race. Like, was it today? I don't know, but there's something going on here. I haven't really watched a lot of Formula 1, but yeah, I like the show. Okay, so b5 was played, and now g takes h5. So we were able to gain this pawn on h5, and I started becoming kind of happier, you know, okay, we have at least this pawn, and this could become a really strong pawn. But I got really scared also because this pawn and this idea is starting to become really scary. So rook f8 was played, and now queen g2, and the idea is just basically to get the queen into action. So queen e1 check was played, and this was a slight mistake by Stockfish maybe. So like I said, in some positions, neither of these players, either white or black, are going to make the most accurate move in the position because I have depth 14 on, which is the lowest depth of Stockfish 15.1. Now, Stockfish 15.1 is one of the, you know, best engines out there, but I had it on the lowest depth just to make it slightly more interesting so that both colors could make mistakes at some point. So queen e1 check is actually not the most accurate move. the engine now, when I have it on a little bit of a higher depth, on depth 21, thinks that c4 is a better move, but you know, it also thinks that queen a1 is pretty good as well. So actually, it's really like taking like a little while to like think it through, but it thinks that queen a1 is fine as well, but it also likes this move. So queen a1, knight b1, we have to cover it up, and now b4 was played, and now the position is supposed to be equal, but the position is nothing but equal. You know, this is a super dynamic position where there's some crazy stuff going on the king side, sorry, on the queen side, but you know, it's like this king side. But we also have this crazy pawn. So queen g4 was played here, threatening the rook. And now this was a moment though, where I think black did a mistake, like a real true mistake. This was not a mistake before, but this was probably a true mistake. So the engine recommends going rook b8, like the engine at a higher depth thinks that rook b8 is the best move to basically threaten to take, and, you know, have some nasty stuff going on over here, looking towards b2. But Stockfish in this position went rook c7. And, you know, you may say, okay, what's the difference? But actually the rook is not so active here. So the rook is much more active on b8, looking towards white's king through x-ray. So actually here, queen c4 was played. And now f5. And after this move, h6 became insanely strong. This pawn is literally going on a path. And now in this position, black went b takes a3, and I find this move that white did absolutely insane. I mean, right now, Stockfish is threatening to capture here, okay? Stockfish is threatening all kinds of different things. They're threatening a2 is one of the moves to take here. They're threatening a takes b2, queen takes b2. There's all kinds of different things. But because Stockfish is Stockfish, they know that after the king goes to d2, there's nothing. So I was really scared. Stockfish in this position went h7, literally forgetting about all the threats going on here. And I was like, what happens if a2? But this is actually insane. After a2, which looks insane, you know, you're threatening to take this knight on b1 and make another queen. There is this move, king d2, where you completely say, hey, I don't care about anything. And now, if the pawn takes the knight, this is beautiful. Rook takes queen, and this queen is trapped. Is that not absolutely beautiful? I find this really beautiful. This queen is trapped, and white is super winning here. So actually, this move h7, completely not caring about any of these moves, is actually really good. And now black's move is f4, black's best move, which Stockfish did here. So f4, bishop f2, and now queen takes b2 was played. The king has to escape to d2, and now e4. Now, what is the idea of e4? Like I said before, hey, that rhymed. When you're playing against the king that's in the center, you just try to explode all of the pawns that are in front of it. So this is a way of basically just exploding the position. Now, going d takes e4 would actually be a big mistake here, and also because it would just simply like open up the file in front of the king. So this would actually be a pretty big mistake. So it's important here in this position to go either queen takes e4 or f takes e4. Both of those moves are quite good. But queen takes e4 was played in this position, and now f5, basically threatening the queen. So queen e6, taking control of a square that is now very weak after f5 was played. And then queen f6, Stockfish wants to go ahead and exchange queens, but now Stockfish is in a worse position. Black is in a worse position. And it all actually started with rook c7. This move right here was the move that made black get into a worse position, which I find pretty fascinating at this level. So now the knight is starting to come up to the center, threatening the queen, threatening on f3, gotta defend, queen takes f4, winning a pawn, and black still is trying to explode white's king, you know? And here, rook de1 was played, threatening the knight. So bishop d6, defending the knight, but also threatening maybe at some point to go for some sort of, well, now the knight is pinned, but sometimes this could get a little bit scary, this pin. So knight takes a3, you cannot capture the knight because there's then rook takes e5 with check. So the king escapes so that the knight is not pinned anymore. And now knight b5 was played, threatening both the rook and the bishop. And this already shows also why the rook on c7 is just so much worse. So actually, white is now getting a fantastic position. This is according to the engine +3. So this is like really good right now. Knight takes d3. This is now starting to become absolutely crazy. Knight takes d3. this is, well, the bishop is threatening the queen, and now the knight is also threatening the rook, but now we're able to get 2 pieces for the rook. So there's an exchange here, and now white goes for this insane intermediate move, rook g8, which is just beautiful. So rook g8, the threat is just basically that if you take, then white is just going to take and promotion to a queen, so you can't do that. The king cannot go to e8 to defend, and if the king would go something to like e7, you can go rook takes f8 and make a queen. So actually in this position, the absolute best move is to first take on f3, threatening the king, and then after the king moves, to capture on h7 and give up the rook. So after king e7 and rook a8, which is beautiful, the idea is that there's a threat of rook a7 check, winning the rook. So right now, if the knight would try to defend itself, there would be this move, which I honestly just find absolutely beautiful. So king takes f3, and now white is a full piece up in this endgame. And after a few moves over here, as you can see, rook b7, white was able to, basically win a pawn. And here, black started trying to keep on checking, but white has 2 passed pawns, which is always, I mean, even without the bishop, I think this might be winning because the pawns are so far away from each other. So it's going to be really hard for the king to defend both of the pawns, but I'm not entirely sure. But I mean, this right now with the bishop just becomes completely winning. And I mean, at this point, like Stockfish even sacrificed the rook, which is when you know how bad this is. Like if Stockfish sacrifices the rook and you get this position, it is absolutely just a disaster. I mean, Stockfish cannot really resign, right? So after a few moves, this became a... Okay, the checkmate ended here. There we go. Queen e1 checkmate. I don't know why it wasn't showing up. So this was the end. And actually, Stockfish 15.1 on depth 14 was after 71 moves able to beat the exact same level Stockfish with the cow opening. Now, I find this pretty crazy because... Okay, yes, this was a lower depth, but these were 2 engines at the exact same level, okay, that faced each other. And even though white started off with this opening that's supposed to be dubious and not so good, white was still able to beat such a strong engine with it. And I honestly just find it completely fascinating. So I think that this actually kind of proves a little bit that this opening can be played and you can get good results pretty much no matter what your rating is. Okay, if you're like 23, 2400, obviously this might start becoming bad, but at Blitz, I truly think that at a Blitz game, at pretty much any level, you can play the cow opening. Now, I will do a video where I put 2 Stockfishes at the absolute highest depth and have white play the cow opening and see how that goes. Now, do I think that probably white will lose? Maybe if it's at the absolute highest depth out there, but I don't know. I haven't tested it. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see that video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know once again if you do end up playing the cow opening. Thank you so much for watching the video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and moo everybody. I'm sorry, I had to.